What's live for your Super Bowl 55, Super Bowl LV breakdown, prediction, preview, and of course in this video, I know everybody's been asking me for the past week and a half, Mitch, who are you picking in the Super Bowl? Well, you're going to find out in this video. I'm going to go in depth on the breakdown, in depth on the matchup on both sides of the football. And we are going to find out who I believe will win this game, Super Bowl LV. And let me tell you guys, I've said it once, I'll say it again. This was the Super Bowl I wanted since the beginning of the year, because I think this is the Super Bowl that is best for business. The Super Bowl that is going to bring the most eyeballs. The Super Bowl that's going to be the most exciting. Unfortunately, we haven't had the typical kind of hype for a Super Bowl because we've had an atypical season, really. We've had a different season. We haven't had the same type of media day, the same type of just buzz surrounding the Super Bowl overall because of the whole COVID protocols. But I'm expecting a great game, and I think we are in for an absolutely epic Super Bowl between two epic, great, awesome quarterbacks. We truly have a matchup that is once in a lifetime in the Super Bowl when it comes to a quarterback in their prime, Patrick Mahomes. That's one of the few quarterbacks that could maybe surpass the GOAT, who is currently Tom Brady. That is a once-in-a-lifetime matchup. Think of it this way. This is the equivalent of if Tom Brady somehow played Joe Montana. That's really what the equivalent of this is. It's the equivalent of, for you basketball fans, maybe LeBron James playing Michael Jordan. Like, that is seriously something that we never get to see. But because Tom Brady has played so long, the guy's 43, and in another Super Bowl, we actually, in fact, are going to see it. And although they're not playing each other, they are the headliners. They are the guys that we're going to be talking about before the game and after the game. And they are the guys that this game impacts the most in terms of their legacy within the NFL. And I'm just excited to watch it. I'm excited to see it. CBS is covering the game, so that means we're going to have Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on the call. I think one of the best duos in the sport. They've always done a great job at covering these games in particular. Tony Romo and Nantz also have a history, the AFC Championship from 2018 between these two quarterbacks. They called an epic game there. Everybody remembers the Tony Romo predictions, kind of built his mystique as a color commentator. So there's a lot of good in this game. There's a really, really great matchup, and I feel just details within both sides of the ball that I'm excited to get into. So before I get into the details, get into my overall preview for Super Bowl 55, what you need to do is, as always, Gronk spike that like button. Gronk is back in another Super Bowl. Also, subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL each and every, basically, day here on the channel. If you don't have a team in the Super Bowl, which you probably do not, then consider subscribing for the off-season content that will take place immediately following Super Bowl 55 as we look ahead into the draft and into free agency and what your team can do better to get here, because that's what we want, right? As fans of these NFL teams, we want our team in this game and to have a chance to win it. That's ultimately what this is all about, right? So, subscribe if you want to hear some of the best off-season content on YouTube for the NFL. All right, guys, here it is, the Super Bowl. I can't believe, honestly, we're already here. And as I said on the bottom line just last night, I said, man, I feel like It's been so long since the AFC and NFC championship. It feels abnormally long, even though I've experienced this so many times, 9 other times practically, as a Patriots fan and now, cheering on Tom. It just feels abnormally long, right? As a fan of this game, obviously, I think a lot of that has to do with the environment and the circumstances, but we're a few days away, and I've done a ton of research for this game. I have basically just watched the first game from Week 12. I've gone through each and every podcast, preview, video that I possibly could. I've taken away some things that I saw from the first game that I think could be implemented in this game. I've looked at some stats of key matchups for this game. And I've just basically thought in the mind of the coaches for each team, how could they put their best foot forward to win this game? And that's what I'm going to try to do my best in this one, is give the opinion, give the argument from both sides, the Chiefs and the Bucs. There is going to be a slight lean for the analysis towards Tampa. Reason being is that there are a lot of people picking the Chiefs, and a lot of people are saying basically it's the Chiefs' Super Bowl to lose. So whenever a team is an underdog, you do have to think a little bit harder for how they are going to win the game. When your team's the favorite, they kind of just got to play the way they play. We'll get into what I believe the Chiefs need to do to beat the Bucs 2 times this season. But obviously, there's going to be a slight lean towards Tampa because they are the underdog, and there are an abnormal amount of people, despite the spread only being 3, picking them to repeat. So let's go into that, and let's get into it. Starting off with the Super Bowl tail of the tape. And shout out to my man Ultra, who has been helping throughout the playoffs to get these graphics up and looking good, and just helping out with all the stats. That's been nice of him. So shout out Ultra. Everybody give Ultra a thumbs up in the chat. Okay, so this is the Super Bowl tail of the tape. We have Kansas City led by Mahomes, Tampa Bay led by Brady. Offensively, this is closer on paper than a lot of people would think, at least, as everybody is discussing the Chiefs' offense as this powerhouse, unstoppable unit. Tampa Bay is also elite on offense, though. Don't forget it. They can probably bring more balance to this matchup than Kansas City, but where Kansas City is so good is their explosive ability down the field. Both of these offenses feature passing games that are 2 of the best, I believe both in the top 3 for explosive pass plays down the field. So both of these offenses, if you're into big pass plays, that is what the defense is going to have to try to take away, and that's what these offenses do best. Kansas City is a little bit better in terms of their versatility and ability to switch things up with their passing game. I feel Tampa sometimes relies too heavily on the deep passing game, while Kansas City, I feel, has evolved to incorporating more short passing game than maybe Tampa has in their arsenal. And maybe that's the difference between the 2 passing offenses. Rushing-wise, I would lean towards Tampa as having a clear edge in that department, especially in this game, considering the defense they're playing. Kansas City, defensively, I think their number lies here. I don't think they're the 22nd best or whatever it'd be, 12th worst defense in the NFL. I see them more as a middle unit in the league. Maybe when it comes to a clutch game, they typically up their level of play. As we saw versus Buffalo, their defense impressed, especially their pass defense, their pass rush. They got constant pressure on Josh Allen. Their secondary was very sticky. And when they're able to play a certain way, they are very effective. Now for Tampa, they're a much more well-rounded defense and just consistent defense than Kansas City. They have better pass rushers, a better D-line, better linebackers, better talent overall. Both defenses have great schemes. Both defenses have great coordinators. And it's going to be very interesting to see how both teams attack the opposing offense. That's going to be a challenge. Turnover differential, Tampa Bay slightly in their favor as their defense typically takes the football away more often than Kansas City. But throughout these playoffs, the first two matchups for Kansas City, they have been very good at taking the ball away and keeping it themselves. So they've been effective in a turnover differential. Tampa Bay has also been largely effective in winning these games in the playoffs because they've won the turnover battle. Now, in the first game versus New Orleans, or the second game in their playoffs, but the first game versus Washington, they won the turnover battle. The second game versus New Orleans, they blew the Saints out in terms of the turnover battle. That's a big reason they won. A lot of people are talking about the NFC Championship like they actually won the turnover battle. No, they lost the turnover battle, but were still able to win the game. So that shows that they're still able to overcome that if they need to. So that's the tale of the tape. Let's take a look at some of the overall just things to look out for and storylines for this game before we get to each side of the football. So, as you guys know, both of these teams played each other this season. It's been talked about at length. The final score, in case you're living under a rock and haven't heard it, 27-24 Kansas City in Week 12. Now, I would like to inform you that that game was 17-0 after the first quarter for the Chiefs. I did the live stream for it in case you just want to look back at it and see how I reacted as the game unfolded. Both teams were different at the time. I would say Tampa Bay is much different now than they were back then. Kansas City is slightly different. But I think there are more things, as we'll discuss, that Kansas City will do that they'll try to replicate from this game, that they'll try to carry over in the Super Bowl, while I feel like a lot of what Tampa did in that game is kind of irrelevant. Now, the game became 27-24 with 4 minutes left in the game, so it was still a game at the end of things. And it really just came down to a 3rd and 7 at the end for Kansas City to close the game out with a conversion to Tyreek Hill. At this point in the game, Tampa was really moving the ball well. They scored 2 consecutive touchdown drives. Brady was marching back, and it felt like if the Bucs could get one more stop, they were going to end up winning this game. But Kansas City closed the door thanks to Tyreek Hill, who is virtually unstoppable in this game. So that was Week 12. Now, the storylines for this game, from an outside perspective that I feel like not enough people are talking about. Everybody's talking about GOAT versus baby GOAT, but I feel like not enough people are talking about oldest combined age of coaches in a Super Bowl. I think that's pretty special when you're talking about Andy Reid and Bruce Arians. Of course, Bruce Arians is a guy that retired and came back last year. So he actually had a year off from football. Andy Reid, in a different way, we saw the transition from Philadelphia to Kansas City and this recent resurgence where Andy Reid for a long time was known as a great coach, but not necessarily one of the greatest coaches until he won last year's Super Bowl. He would just be able to add a layer to his legacy and maybe move up into elite discussion when it comes to all-time coaches. Well, I feel like Bruce Arians could probably move himself into the Hall of Fame if he does in fact win this game. These are the two teams, in my opinion, that both offer the biggest margin for error in football this year. We've talked about how important it is for margin of error, the ability to win games despite not having your A-level performance. And everybody talks about that with Kansas City, as they should, with Patrick Mahomes and this team repeatedly winning games despite not playing very well throughout the regular season and just beating teams that they should have beat by a lot more. That was a storyline for why a lot of people thought they weren't quite as good as maybe people were talking about them as. But with Tampa Bay's the same way. I mean, they just won a game where Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions at Lambeau Field versus the MVP of football. So they certainly also have that same thing. Tampa throughout the rest of the season has also had a couple comebacks where they haven't exactly played well at the beginning of the game. They've come back. They've also had games where they just overall were sloppy, just played bad on offense, bad on defense, or turned the ball over, or had some penalties and just overall weren't able to play their best A+ game, but still were able to win win the game. So both of these teams, because of the style they play offensively, a lot of big plays, a lot of home run plays, and the way that their defense is able to turn the football over, create pressure, they are both teams that I feel like there's going to be stretches in this game where it's just home runs. Like it's a big play on defense, it's a big play on offense. It's become a home run strikeout league. That's what Chris Sims says, and I largely agree with him, considering the two teams that are playing in this game are all about home runs and strikeouts. So it's not going to be really, to me, about efficiency. It's going to be about the big plays. Now, let's talk about a little bit of history here. So the there's been 7 Super Bowl rematches. In those last 7 Super Bowl rematches that have happened, there's been more Super Bowl rematches, but in the last 7, 5 of the last 7 losers of the regular season game have won the Super Bowl. So that's an interesting little stat there in favor of Tampa Bay, that even if you lose in the regular season, you actually have a better chance of winning in the Super Bowl. And ones that I can recall there are, in fact, 2007 Giants losing in Week 17, kind of gaining a spark of momentum in that game, and then rolling into the playoffs and ultimately defeating the 2007 Patriots. That's the one that comes to mind, obviously, but there's been more games like that. But I think that was kind of the headliner of them all, as well as the 2001 Patriots losing to the Rams in that season with Tom Brady in his first season as a starter, and gaining momentum from that, and then going on a run into the playoffs and winning as a really big underdog. So actually 2 of those have been really big underdogs, upsetting a team that was a super big favorite. Also to consider just in general with teams that win the regular season matchup, I think the reason this stat exists is because of what I talked about. Like when you lose, I talked a lot about this in the divisional round when the Saints and Bucs played. I said, like, when you lose to a team twice and when that team has beaten you twice, there's not much they can do better. But when you lose, you have like a total different outlook. You have fear, you have game planning on your side, and you have basically the perspective of what do we have to lose, while the team that won is kind of like, well, we just got to execute, right? Now, over the past 13 Super Bowls, in terms of the betting market, the early line move has been toward the eventual point spread winner in 10 of those games. So in the past 13 Super Bowls, 10 of those teams that the market initially moved on, so the first big movement in the line, this year it was Tampa Bay moving from +3.5 to +3. The first move has indicated who would cover the spread in 10 of the last 13 Super Bowls. So this year, Tampa Bay moved from 3.5 to +3. I don't know if that means anything. Maybe it means that the people that are putting money initially on the game are smart. Usually those are the sharps out there that are making this big money, and they cause a movement in the Super Bowl line. Because you got to think, the Super Bowl takes more money than any sporting event in the world when it comes to Vegas, when it comes to gambling. So in order to actually move the line, you need to be putting a lot of money into this bet, or you need to have a lot of pull. So that would indicate that a lot of sharps are on the side, at least early on, of Tampa. It can mean something, it can mean nothing. More betting trends with the Chiefs and the Bucs. The Chiefs are just 2-4 against the spread when Mahomes has been sacked 2 or more times this season. Kansas City is also 10-11-1 against the spread in those 2 or more sack games since Mahomes became the starter, which may not look like much, but when you consider that Kansas City is 21-11-1 against the spread when allowing less than 2 sacks, that means that Kansas City, if Mahomes is sacked, a lot better chance the opponent wins the game if he is kept clean, obviously, or he doesn't get sacked a lot. Kansas City's win percentage goes up drastically. So if you believe that Kansas City will be able to keep Mahomes clean, I would favor Kansas City. If you believe that Tampa is going to be able to get to Mahomes 2 or more times in this game, I would favor Tampa in terms of the spread. It doesn't necessarily mean that Tampa would win, but in terms of taking the 3 or the 3.5, it would favor Tampa. One more little piece of info that I thought was interesting coming into this game from a history perspective is that Todd Bowles was once actually a coach under Andy Reid, in case you didn't know that. So they both have a fair recognition of each other's systems. Todd Bowles being a coach in Philadelphia, understanding what Andy Reid likes from an offensive perspective, and Andy Reid knows what Todd Bowles likes from a defensive perspective. So I don't think Bowles was the defensive coordinator at the time. I could be wrong there, actually, but they do have a little bit of history game planning, or at least knowing what each other likes to do. Now, I know a lot of people have actually been asking about refs and reffing throughout the course of the week. So here's another interesting stat that I found. The Super Bowl ref, Carl Sheffers, I believe is his name, calls the highest ratio of penalties on road teams this season. So he calls basically 130% of the penalties, so like in favor of the home team. So if the home team basically gets more calls their way than the away team. This game is interesting because Tampa actually is a home team because they are the first team ever to play in a home Super Bowl. So if you were worried about reffing, if you were a Bucs fan, I wouldn't be so much worried about reffing unless I was a Chiefs fan, because these trends sometimes mean something. Now, this year's a little different because fans haven't really been able to influence calls as much because they're not live in the stadium. But it is interesting that Carl here does tend to call more flags for whatever reason. I don't know if it means anything, but for whatever reason, he tends to call more flags on the road team. So just keep that in mind when you're watching this game. Now let's get to the injury report. Starting off with the players that are coming back for Tampa that did not play in the game in Week 12. When it comes to Kansas City is not missing basically anybody from that Week 12 game. They had everybody healthy for Week 12. They are now missing their left tackle, Eric Fisher, and pretty much replacing Darrell Williams with Le'Veon Bell in the running back rotation. That's not so much an injury, but just like a tactical thing. Kansas City in that game did have Sammy Watkins. They did have, all their weapons: Robinson, Mecole Hardman, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire played in the game. Their defense was all healthy. And yeah, their corners, everything was all good. So everybody that you see defensively for Kansas City will be there, except for Willie Gay Jr., the rookie linebacker, who's out for this game, as well as Eric Fisher, the left tackle, who is also out for this Super Bowl. Now, in terms of Tampa looks a lot different on defense than they did in Week 12. Of course, they have Vita Vea back, who I've called the best nose tackle in football, and I stand very strong on that. I think he's an incredible player who impacts the game as a run defender and as an interior pass rusher. The real big one, though, in my opinion, is Jamel Dean, who did not play in Week 12 and is, or has been, arguably their best corner in these playoffs and has just looked really good. He's also important because Jamel Dean is the fastest of the Bucs corners. He runs a 4.3 flat. His agility isn't quite as good as his straight line speed, but it at least gives somebody that's a little faster if they want to match him up with Tyreek Hill, because that was a big problem in the first game, as we'll get into. Tyreek Hill, as you know, had over 200 yards in the game. A big reason for that is because the Bucs didn't have anyone that could run with Tyreek Hill, especially not Carlton Davis, who they stuck on him man-to-man for a lot of the first quarter, and it was just absolutely lethal for the Chiefs. So Vita Vea is back. Jamel Dean is back in this game from Week 12. Now, Alex Kappa is out, the right guard of Tampa. He's been out for these playoffs. They I believe he got hurt in the first half of the Washington game, and then since then they've had to replace him with Aaron Stinney, the right guard replacement backup, who hasn't played poorly, but that might be a matchup that Chris Jones maybe could exploit in this game. Now, the other injuries from last week to this week, Sammy Watkins will be in. He did not play in the AFC Championship game. Antonio Brown, Antoine Winfield Jr., and Whitehead are all expected to play for the Bucs, who have all been practicing limited. The one injury I would watch out for that has recently crept up on the injury report is Levante David of Tampa Bay, their star linebacker. He's somebody that he's an amazing player. He's dealing with a slight hamstring injury that has kept him to be limited in practice. So definitely look out for that if that might have an impact on this game, if David, for whatever reason, can't play his typical amount of snaps, or maybe is just slower than usual because of that hamstring. So that's the injury report. Take note of all of that. Think about how that might affect the game from last time to this time, and also think about what matchups each team could expose because of the injuries that are in or out. I don't know how healthy a guy like Antonio Brown will be, but that's a guy that, of course, could have a major impact on this game. I don't know how healthy a guy like Sammy Watkins could be, but, of course, a guy that could have a major impact on this game. So let's start for the breakdown and the preview of both sides of the football with the breakdown of Tampa Bay's offense versus Kansas City's defense. And with that, let's take a look at the tail of the tape for that side of the football. So, Tampa Bay's offense finished the season 5th in passing DVOA as a top 5 passing offense. A lot of that, again, is from down the field passes. They are not a team that uses a lot of just wealth in terms of their passing game. Like, what I mean by that is just a large amount. They don't pass a lot necessarily, but when they pass, they're looking to strike. Kansas City's pass DVOA was 16th. Tampa Bay's run DVOA was 10th, while Kansas City's was 31st. Third down, also an edge to Tampa, 7th to 17th. And the red zone, Tampa 11th to dead last for Kansas City. So when looking at the stats don't mean everything, but when looking at the stats, Tampa Bay has the edge on basically every category in fact. And they have massive edges in the run game and massive edges in the red zone, which might be the difference. Now, I will say Kansas City was awesome in the red zone versus Buffalo, and their recent performance on third down has been very good. They were also excellent on third down in Week 12. So take all those things into account. The matchup with Tampa is going to be very interesting on this side of the football. And this is a side of the football that might not be getting talked about enough, but very well might actually impact the game the most on who wins it. So, let's start off with this stat. The Bucs have scored 30-plus points in 6 straight games, and according to this statistic, they now draw their easiest matchup of those 6 games. Against teams outside of the top 10, they have averaged 34.9 points per game. So outside of teams that rank in the top 10 in DVOA or expected points added, EPA, they score nearly 35 points a game. They scored 24 in the first matchup between these two teams. The Chiefs' defense is 19th in EPA, expected points added, again, if you don't know what that is, and 22nd in DVOA, okay? So that's defense above average, basically. So Tampa plays their easiest matchup of the playoffs with this game. They played the Saints, they played the Packers, they played Washington. All defenses considered statistically better than Kansas City's. Kansas City, though, again, I'll state it again for you Chiefs fans, your defense is better than what the stats suggest. I believe that to be true. Now let's look at that Week 12 game just a little bit and what happened on this side of the football. So Kansas City, what they did versus Tom Brady was they blitzed, and they blitzed a lot. Okay, Kansas City's blitz rate versus Tom Brady in Week 12 was 47.6%, which is absolutely very high. I believe that's the highest percentage Tom Brady has been blitzed in a decade in a game, okay? So that's a lot. Maybe you expect them to do it this much. Maybe you expect them to tone it down a little bit, but I wouldn't expect more than basically 50% of the time the Chiefs blitzing. A lot of that is also because the Bucs fell behind early, so that also means that teams are going to blitz more. This blitz percentage, 47.6, this was very effective. At this time in the year, Tampa Bay was very bad at picking up blitzes. They had no answers for the blitz. They had basically, their protections weren't good versus the blitz. This is something that New Orleans exposed in week 9, and Kansas City continued to expose in week 12. Now, keep in mind, this was a week before Tampa Bay's bye week. Since the bye week, Tampa Bay's offensive line, their blitz pickups, and overall answers to the blitz from Tom Brady's perspective have been much better. So I would expect much in half when they went on their run to score a lot of points. So what effectively this did was cause a lot of 3-and-outs for Tampa Bay early in this game. I mean, it was 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt. Like the whole first quarter was an utter joke, right? It was just Kansas City would get Tampa Bay to third down, even third and short. They would blitz them, and Brady would be under constant duress. The offensive line didn't really know what to do, and Brady was throwing inaccurate passes, and they just weren't picking up the first down on third down. Now, remember last week versus Green Bay, they were able to basically convert on third down in the first half at will, and part of the reason they weren't really able to make it a blowout versus the Packers is because they weren't converting on third down at the same rate that they were in the first half. So, in my opinion, a lot of this game comes down to, for Tampa, how do they call the early downs? If they continue to play the way they've played, which is a lot of running on first down, how effective are they running the ball on first down? And then if they do get to third down, how efficient are they at picking up the blitz? And how effective is Brady at converting on third down? Last week, is the reason they won the game is because Tom Brady on third down last week was amazing. But this week, if he's not quite at that level, it's obviously advantage Kansas City. Now, Brady in this game also threw 2 interceptions. He threw 3 last week. He threw 2 in this game in week 12. Now, let's go over both of the interceptions because I think it's fascinating. A pick to Bashaud Breeland, okay? This was a one-on-one matchup with Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller actually had a step on Bashaud Breeland. Brady was under pressure. This was in the second half. Brady was under pressure, and Brady kind of threw it up. He tried to lead Miller, but the ball was actually underthrown. Miller had a step on Breeland. I think if he connects with Miller here or just puts the ball a little bit ahead of Breeland, that might be a touchdown because it was one-on-one, no safety help. It was basically a zero blitz from Kansas City, and Brady kind of underthrew the ball slightly, and Breeland was able to make a play. Now, it's important because this was also at Kansas City's 40-yard line. So, essentially, Tampa Bay gave away points with this interception that Brady threw. The other interception is Tampa Bay threw it at Kansas City's 25-yard line, so again, giving away points. This one was more fluky. It wasn't necessarily Brady's fault. I would not say this was Brady's fault. Kansas City blitzed, had a 6-man blitz. I literally paused the video and counted the guys that were blitzing. Nobody picked it up. Okay, nobody picked it up. There was a guy running free at Brady. Brady threw the ball immediately. It was tipped up into the air and then caught. Okay, so it was more kind of fluky because the tip landed in a guy's arms. But again, both interceptions were a result of pressure that Tampa could not pick up. When I watched the rest of the game, when Kansas City decided not to blitz, they almost never got to Brady. So every time Kansas City pressured with just 4, they got eaten alive. Like it was Brady had time and he was just slinging. And that's why I think Brady ended up with over 350 yards. A lot of that had to do with them passing in the second half repeatedly. But They had better answers for the blitz. Brady was actually connecting on deep balls in the second half. I think he connected with Gronk on a couple. He connected with Evans on a huge fourth down for a touchdown versus double coverage, where Evans just ran past their corners and scored a touchdown. But I think there's just two aspects to it. So can the Bucs handle the blitz? Does Spagnuolo blitz as much as he did? Does he find new ways to effectively get to Tom while blitzing? Because Tampa knows it's coming this time. They know it's coming. They're going to study what they did in the first game, and they're going to try to effectively stop it in the Super Bowl. They've had a whole week, a bye week to, prepare for it. So does Spagnuolo have new ways of creating pressure? Because I don't believe that if they just rush 4, they'll be able to get to Brady with consistency. They will need to blitz. And then behind that, is Kansas City's corners able to hold up versus the weapons of the Bucs? Does Mike Evans make a big play? Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, Scotty Miller. Are these guys able to beat the man-to-man coverage that a lot of the time Kansas City loves to run? So those are both matchups that I can't really tell you what's going to happen. I can guess what's going to happen, but effectively it's up to the players to be able to decide whether they win those one-on-one matchups on the outside. So that's why, to me, Kansas City's coverage is just as important as what they do up front. Now, again, I just said the Bucs need to be better on first down, but let's just assume that the Bucs just do what they've been doing, okay? Which I don't think they should do this, but let's just assume they do it, okay? Which is run the ball on first down like 5 out of every 6 times. So if they do run the ball on first down, how effective will they be running the ball? Now, we talked about how Kansas City isn't very good at defending the run. They also haven't been put in a situation in these playoffs where they've had to deal with run teams, right? The Browns got down early. When the Browns ran the ball, they were effective, but they didn't run the ball early, and they were down early. So that game's a wash. Then you move to the AFC Championship. The Bills don't run the ball, period. And they got behind as well. All right, they were actually up 9-0, but it quickly turned around because they weren't able to run the ball. So, if they run the ball, will they be successful? I think it's important for Tampa to be able to hit some big runs in this game because I think at least it will back Spagnuolo off of being so aggressive with all his blitzes. Because effectively, if you run the ball correctly to the right side, to the right blitz, you can gash a team when they're sending heat at you in certain situations, and you hit them with, a run to the left where they're blitzing everybody off the right, and then you got all, these lead blockers to the left, and you pick up 25 yards on the ground with Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette. So I think it's important that the Bucs run the ball, but I think where it's more important where they run the ball is in 3 areas, and this could really determine the game for the Bucs in terms of how effective they are running the ball. I think it's in the red zone. It could give them a massive advantage over the Chiefs, who can't really run the ball on their offensive side. On short yardage, which we'll get to, I think is a key area of this game that Tampa has a massive edge, and also time of possession. I think it is important to run the ball, at least stay a little balanced, because you want to keep Mahomes on the sidelines and sipping Gatorade as much as you can. So running the football effectively on early downs, if they can do it, right, if is the big thing. If they're running into a brick wall for 2 yards, you got to get away from it. But if you're running for 4 yards a carry on first or second down, then that's going to go a long way to helping the Bucs win this game and be able to control the game, control time of possession, and keep Mahomes on the sidelines, not allowing Patrick to, basically play the way he wants to, and the Chiefs offense playing the way they want to. That is the way the game unfolded the first time, because Tampa was going 3 and out consistently in the first quarter, which allowed Kansas City to go up 17-0. So essentially, how effective do they run the ball? Is it good? Is it bad? I'd slightly lean towards it will be fine. It won't be great. It won't be bad. It will be okay. 3 yards here, 4 yards here, 5 yards here, 2 yards here, 1 yard here, 6 yards here. It will be fine. I don't think it will be great for them. But I will say this. This is the weakest run defense by far that they've played all playoffs. So if you're basing the success of Tampa's rushing attack off of what they played versus Green Bay, or especially in New Orleans, Tampa should have more success versus Kansas City than versus Green Bay, New Orleans, or versus Washington. So that is in their favor. But what I really want to see Tampa do on first down, especially early in the game, is because they're so predictable at running the football on first down and on early downs that teams know it's coming. Spagnuolo's going to guess it. He's going to run blitz practically half the time. So play action on first down for Tampa early in this game could be very, very successful if they decide to use it. And I feel like they will, because Kansas City's defense has a lot of trouble with play action, especially in week 12 when Tampa decided to use it. So I do think Tampa is going to use a lot of play action, but they need to do it on first down. I really want them to use play action on first down because everybody in the world knows that Tampa wants to run the ball on first down. So when you do play fake, it essentially gives you all this room over top those linebackers for your tight ends or your receivers to work that could be wide open for big plays early in this game. So look out for that especially. So now where are the matchups that I feel Tampa can attack Kansas City in the passing game? So I feel like there are 3 matchups that favor Tampa Bay versus Kansas City. I think it's going to be difficult for the Bucs to necessarily hit a lot of deep plays because there will be pressure from a lot of blitzes, and it's going to be very low percentage. But where I feel like they can really attack Kansas City is with their tight ends, Rob Gronkowski and Cameron Brate, versus Kansas City's linebackers, who allow the 5th most yards to tight ends this season. They are poor at especially defending tight ends in the red zone, where they rank dead last versus tight ends in the red zone this season. So Kansas City's linebackers matched up on Gronk and Cam Brate is a mismatch that Tom Brady could look towards. Gronk has been heavily used as a blocker in the past few weeks, but I do feel I have an inkling that Gronk is going to have a pretty good game in this one because I don't feel, like I said, if Kansas City is not sending heat and they're just rushing 4, I don't see the same Bucs, offense that they had against like New Orleans, where they were very conservative at protecting against their 4-man rush. In this game, you can take more chances because they don't have the pass rush of a New Orleans Saints. So that's a big matchup to look towards. Another couple matchups that I think will be in the favor of Tampa is Kansas City has been very poor at defending slot receivers this year, statistically. So I feel like if they're not in a heavy set with a lot of tight ends and running the football out of it, I feel like Tampa will be in a lot of 4 or 5 wide where they could effectively throw the football with probably Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown in the slot with Mike Evans and Scotty Miller outside. That's a formation that I would look for. I think Scotty Miller's speed on 1 or 2 plays in this game could result in a big play. I do think Bashaud Breeland did a very good job on Mike Evans in the first one, but I do think Mike Evans is going to have to make a few plays, specifically on third down versus Breeland in this game. L'Jarius Sneed has been very good this year in man-to-man coverage and in coverage in general, and that's going to be a challenging matchup for Chris Godwin. But Godwin he's an awesome player, and he's going to find ways to make plays. So that's going to be a stalemate there. I think Antonio Brown in the slot or Tyler Johnson as well, if Antonio Brown's not 100%, versus a guy like Fenton, if they go like 5 wide, 4 wide, that could be a matchup that they look to expose because I think as the lower you go down on that depth chart, if you put them in the slot where Kansas City has not been very good at defending, a lot of that is also because their linebackers, again, like I brought up, aren't very good in coverage. So when they're like filling in the middle of the field in zones, they're not that effective at it. So crossers and like quick throws over the middle could be effective. Kansas City is also, I heard this stat from Warren Sharp, which was like super deep. They are like one of the worst teams at defending tight ends, specifically when they're in line. They're good at defending tight ends when they're in the slot, but if they're in line, on the line of scrimmage, those tight ends typically go off versus Kansas City. Now, a few more things on this side of the ball. The way I see the matchup stacking up is I see Mike Evans versus Bashaud Breeland from the first game. I see Godwin versus L'Jarius Sneed, and I see Antonio Brown, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson versus Ward or Fenton. So Ward's typically on the outside, so that would probably be Scotty Miller or Antonio Brown if Antonio Brown's on the outside and Chris Godwin's in the slot. If it's 4 wide, it's probably going to be Godwin versus Sneed and AB versus Fenton, Miller versus Ward, and Evans versus Breeland if they're playing man coverage. That's probably what you'd see. The last thing I want to hit on here is the short yardage, which I said is a very big part of this game that I think the Bucs can be effective in. Kansas City's defense was dead last this year in stopping short yardage runs. 78% of the time it was converted. The Bucs offense is number 1 in short yardage runs, 88% converted. So in short yardage, if the Bucs decide to run, which sometimes they don't for whatever reason, but if they decide to run, it's most likely going to be a conversion. And I am telling you, Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians, if it's 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2 in short, run the ball because you're likely to get it statistically. Okay, so that is the Bucs offense versus the Chiefs defense. Ultimately, that matchup comes down to pressure on Brady. If the Chiefs blitzes are able to effectively get to Brady, they will probably win the game. If the Bucs have answers, if the Bucs are executing and basically protecting Tom, they should have a lot of success in this game offensively. With basically whatever they determine is the matchup, because they have so many weapons, they have so many, different ways to attack in the passing game and the running game, that I do think this side of the ball does favor Tampa Bay. Now let's switch to the opposite side of the football, and this is the matchup that you guys have all been wanting to hear about. But before I get to that, make sure that you do spike that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more NFL breakdowns just like this. Guys, do spike that like button. It helps the channel. It helps other people see this preview, this video, this prediction. So please do spike that like button. The YouTube algorithm loves spikes. So spike that like button, guys. All right. Let's get to the big side of the football that I know you guys are excited to hear about. This is the one that's been hyped up the most overall. So this is the Tampa Bay defense facing the Kansas City offense in Super Bowl LV. So across the board statistically, Tampa Bay 5th in pass DVOA, 2nd for Kansas City. The Packers are the team that ranked 1st, and Tampa Bay just played them. Run DVOA. Kansas City, not as balanced as a team like Green Bay. 13th, but I think 13th is probably higher than a lot of people would expect to see from their average run game. And Tampa Bay is number 1 versus the run. We're going to talk about why that probably doesn't matter a lot in this game, but could matter in certain small moments in the game. 3rd down. That is number 3 for Kansas City, thanks to Mahomes and the great play calling of Andy Reid. A lot of Travis Kelce conversions. They're very good on 3rd down. Tampa's kind of average on 3rd down. They rank 14th. Red zone, Tampa is slightly below average at 20th, while Kansas City is slightly above average at 14th. Kansas City had a lot of trouble in the red zone recently, but then versus the Bills kind of turned it back on. So it's kind of up to you what you think about the red zone matchup, because, last week that was something that I thought favored Buffalo, but as we saw, Kansas City came out with a great game plan. They executed well. And I think a big part of why Kansas City was actually very successful in the red zone in the AFC Championship game is because that they actually ran the ball well. And that's something that I'm not sure they'll be able to do in this game. But let's talk about it. So, Kansas City's offense versus Tampa Bay's defense. To me, it doesn't necessarily even come down to who is dominating the matchup. To me, what this matchup comes down to is the splash plays. Okay? Who has more big plays on this side of the ball? the Bucs defense, do they cause 2 or 3 turnovers, or does Kansas City's offense have 2 or 3 40-yard touchdowns? Like, that's what it came down to in the first game, right? It was pretty much a stalemate. Like Kansas City's offense could move the ball, and then at other times, the Bucs defense was stopping them. But really what won the game was Kansas City's first quarter with their ability to throw a 40-yard touchdown and a 75-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill. Like, that was the difference. Bucs did have a strip sack in the game, so that was a big play for them. But Kansas City had more splash plays on offense than the Bucs did on defense. As I mentioned, the lone change tactically for Kansas City is that Darrell Williams is replacing Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell will be essentially the third running back in this game, not the second or the first. I believe it will be a lot of Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he's probably the better receiver out of the two than Darrell Williams. But I think Darrell Williams will be involved in short yardage as well as being involved as the spell back. He'll probably be about 40% of the time out on the field, while Clyde is out there like 60% of the time. Maybe you see Le'Veon Bell in a few plays. The other thing to note, again, is that Eric Fisher is not playing in this game. That has essentially extremely scrambled the entire offensive line of the Kansas City Chiefs. They have an entirely different looking offensive line. I believe at left tackle, they're going to be starting Mike Ramers, who played right tackle for a majority of the year, while Eric Fisher played left tackle. A lot of people have brought up how he played so bad in the Super Bowl 50 versus Von Miller. I wouldn't expect him to play quite that bad because that was like an absolutely dreadful performance. I have not seen many worse performances in my lifetime at the tackle position. He just got totally dominated. But it is worth noting that Mike Ramers has played a lot more right tackle than he's played left tackle as of late, and that could be something that might be a little awkward for him, but it's also worth noting that he is a veteran tackle who's played in big games before that has experience. Center-wise, they have Austin Reiter, however you pronounce his name, has been fairly solid. He's the lone guy that is starting, I believe, in the same spot. Andrew Wiley is playing right tackle. He's moving to right tackle. He usually plays guard. I believe I'm right. I might actually have to check the depth chart. Maybe Chiefs fans can help me out with this one. Let me actually check the depth chart. I don't want to be wrong about this. But what I'm trying to say is that the Chiefs' offensive line is like completely different from even last week. So if the Chiefs win this game, it's going to be like an absolute masterclass from Andy Reid. Like, I think Andy Reid's ability to call plays will win or lose this team the game, in some sense, right? And it's up to Tampa to basically not lose to the play calling and creativity of Andy Reid. So let's go over it. So Mike Ramers at left tackle, Andrew Wiley at right tackle, Steven Wisniewski at right guard, who is now starting this week after not playing last week. He will be in at right guard. He is a veteran guard who I believe played in the Super Bowl last year, but he did get cut by Pittsburgh as well during the middle of this season. So maybe he's regressed, maybe he hasn't, I don't know. Austin Reeder, as I said, is center, and Nick Allegretti is the left guard. I do not know how good he is. I don't think he is very good. So just overall, this is a lot of replacement level offensive linemen for the Kansas City Chiefs that they'll be bringing into this Super Bowl. That is very fascinating because we just saw Tampa Bay sack Aaron Rodgers 5 times with a 4-man rush and pressure Aaron Rodgers 22 times with a 4-man rush as well. So Aaron Rodgers was under a lot of duress, essentially only missing 1 offensive lineman. Kansas City is basically missing 4. So it's going to be very interesting, and I think it's going to be a lot on the feet of Patrick Mahomes to extend plays and make something happen, and Andy Reid's creativity to keep these guys off of him. So something from the first game of the season is that the Chiefs had the highest neutral pass rate of their entire season versus Tampa Bay. So what that means is when basically basically when the game is even, are they passing or are they running? And they had the highest rate in their entire season. So Kansas City in the first game said, F this, we are not running the football versus the Bucs, or we're not going to do it a lot, and we are going to pass the ball. So 83% of the time in the first game on neutral downs, Kansas City passed the football, which I think they'll do again. They'll try to replicate that. Something that I think is interesting is that Tampa is facing a different challenge in this game that they've faced the last couple of weeks, right? The Packers were a really good offense. They were the best in the league statistically, but they were a lot more balanced, right? They relied a lot more on the running game. They relied less on just a one-dimensional attack, which is what Kansas City likes to do. So in some senses that helps, and some it hurts them because Kansas City's attacking the thing that they do worse, but they don't really have to worry about one element of the game. So it helps you and it hurts you at the same time. Now, back in week number 12, Mahomes had an awesome first half. Tyreek Hill had 203 yards in the first quarter and went absolutely off. After the first quarter, the game changed, and Kansas City was forced more into a lot of quick passing. Tampa Bay basically said, F this, we are going vanilla. Okay? We're going vanilla. We are not going to give up the big play. We're playing too deep. We're playing cover 4. We're playing cover 2. We're playing 2-man deep. And we are not giving up a bomb to Tyreek Hill. So in the second half, Patrick Mahomes only had 103 yards. Remember, he had 400 and something yards in the game. He had only 103 of those in the second half. So that's interesting, I think. Some of that was because the Chiefs did let the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. But at the same time, again, they still ended up with an 83% neutral pass rate. So they were still trying to pass the ball. It just overall wasn't as effective in the second half. I think the number one thing for Tampa to be able to be successful in this game is they cannot blitz. Like, maybe once, twice, or 3 times, but they cannot blitz in this game if they want to have success. And I think they should feel that their best way to success is by not blitzing. And I'll explain why. So Patrick Mahomes in week 12 roasted the Bucs when they blitzed. He went 6 for 9 for 106 yards and had 2 touchdowns. Both of the touchdowns were the Tyreek touchdowns. In the 7 games since the Bucs lost to the Chiefs, they have blitzed a ton. They have blitzed the quarterback more than any team in the NFL. They didn't do it as much versus the Packers, but they did blitz Drew Brees and they blitzed Washington like a lot. So it'll be interesting to see if Todd Bowles sticks with his current strategy or considers Mahomes different, because Mahomes has been, amazing versus the blitz, including a league high passer rating, 134.2 versus the blitz. Now, this is why I think you can kind of throw out what happened in week 12, because it was 2 different halves, and the Bucs, when they blitzed in that game, the Chiefs got all of their big plays. So the Bucs blitzed 17% of the time. I would guarantee you that almost all of that percentage happened in the first or second quarter. I guarantee you. In the second half, they never blitzed, maybe once, okay? But almost every time they did, Mahomes hit them for a big play. Okay, so their average blitz rate is 3rd in the league, Tampa Bay. But they only blitzed Mahomes in that game 17% of the time, which speaks to Bowles quickly realized that he needed to stop blitzing. But before the game, basically the game is so far deep in a hole because of what they did in the first quarter, which was blitz, that it almost didn't matter that they changed, because they were already down 17-0 when they were blitzing so heavily early in the game, if that makes any sense. So the first Tyreek Hill touchdown was a 75-yard touchdown versus cover 3. It was a double move, and essentially it was like a one-on-one between him and Carlton Davis on the outside, the right outside. and Tyreek Hill ran a double move and basically took off, and Mahomes hit Tyreek for a touchdown. Antoine Winfield Jr. played this poorly, in my opinion. He did not cheat to Tyreek Hill's side, and I will tell you this. If he does not cheat to Tyreek Hill's side in this game, they will not win this game, okay? And then on 3rd and 8, Tyreek Hill had a 45-yard touchdown versus cover 0, which was just stupid. I don't think the Bulls will do this again, but both of the safeties, I think every time the Chiefs hit a big play, the safeties were in a bad position. It wasn't just that Davis was getting beat, but the safeties of the Bucs weren't doing a good job of helping Davis. Like, it almost felt like they were just playing like a normal team. Like, okay, it's cool that you play this style versus Davante Adams, but when you play Tyreek Hill, you can't just play a normal cover 3. Like, you have to know that Tyreek Hill is going to run a double move, beat you 50 yards down the field, and you need to cheat to his side. Like, who cares about Sammy Watkins? You got to worry about Tyreek Hill. So that's in part just why Tyreek Hill is the best receiver in the league, first off, and why he's so dangerous and why he is different from everyone else. Like, as good as Davante Adams is, he can run a double move and still not run past Carlton Davis for 75 yards, but Tyreek Hill can. So you can't just run a usual cover 3. You need to run like a cover 3, which I don't think the Bucs will do a lot of cover 3, but I don't think they'll do a lot of single high safety. We'll talk about that. But Tyreek Hill, basically, you gotta look at Tyreek Hill all the time. You gotta have your eyes on him if you're Antoine Winfield or if you're Mike Edwards, that deep free safety in the middle of the field. So what I think Tampa will do in this game, instead of blitzing like they did in the first quarter like a bunch of fools, this is what I think they'll do in this game. A lot of too deep man coverage underneath. This is what the Bucs are best at. And this is what I think will give them their most success. This is why, okay? So too deep essentially protects you, if you run it right, protects you from giving up deep passes. So you're taking away Tyreek Hill. And I think they'll do some creative ways of, mixing it up, having multiple looks of shifting the safeties. Maybe it looks like cover 1 or it looks like cover 3 with the single post safety, and then you kind of switch them and rotate them back into a cover 2 look. But I think that mostly what they're going to do is they're going to play cover 2 man underneath, and they're going to have they're going to play to their strengths. They're going to play man. They're going to match up across the board, and they're going to say, okay, Kansas City, like, we know you're going to move the ball, but what we don't want you to do is hit us for Tyreek Hill 75-yard touchdown. So you're going to have to keep beating us with crossers and keep beating us underneath until we puke. Okay, that's what's going to happen. And essentially what Tampa is going to do here is they are just going to say, JPP, Sue, Vita Vea, and Shaq Barrett, you are our best chance of winning this game, and you are playing a bunch of backups. So what we need you to do is we need you to beat your guy and sack Mahomes, or at least pressure him enough so that we cause an incompletion, we get a sack, we get a pressure. And if one of those things happen on a given set of downs, the edge shifts towards Tampa Bay. Because if Tampa Bay is able to get the Chiefs in 3rd and long, which is typically a strength of the Chiefs, their offensive line is essentially so undermanned that Tampa Bay will be able to overwhelmingly win that matchup and probably win most 3rd and longs, which is not always a given versus the Chiefs, because usually the Chiefs have good enough protection with their 2 great tackles that they're able to still execute on 3rd and long, and Mahomes makes magic happen. Now, what you can't let happen if you're Bulls in this defense is let Mahomes extend the play. So you have to make it so that you bring simulated 4-man rushes. Like, they're going to find multiple different ways, I believe, of sending 4 men. So it could be, they have stunts some way, some form. Maybe this guy comes, this guy drops, or whatever. They'll mix it up. Maybe they have Devin White blitz occasionally, and then maybe like Sue drops out into the middle of the field as a zone defender. Or maybe they have a 3-man. This is something New England did a lot, which I want to get into a little bit. But a lot of 3-man rushes actually worked for New England this year. So what they did was a lot of 3-man rushes, and then like the other guy was kind of like a spy. So essentially whenever Mahomes would like run to the guy, he would rush him. So what you could do here is maybe you have like Devin White on the edge as a spy, and he like is the spy on Mahomes, and when Mahomes releases because he senses pressure from JPP, Devin White just bursts after him and tries to sack him. Like that's something New England does a lot when they play Mahomes, and it has been effective in the past. This year in the AFC Championship, and New England has had a formula where they have held Kansas City to 24 points, I believe, the last 2 times they've played them. So, yeah, that's something that could work. I'd like to see 4-man rushes mixed with 3-man rushes, and then when you go 3-man rush, you get 2 extra guys out and you're taking away the crossers. I think there'll be times where Tampa Bay has double teams on both Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, especially if they're on the same side of the field. And basically what it's going to be is that Kansas City is going to have to throw, Mahomes is going to have to throw to Sammy Watkins or Mecole Hardman, and those guys are going to have to win, like straight up. And that's what Tampa Bay, I think, is going to say. Like, those guys got to beat me if you're going to win this game. Like, we're not going to let Tyreek Hill beat me down the field, and we're not going to let Travis Kelce on 3rd down, like, just pick up 8 yards and get the first down. So we're going to double bracket them, and then you two got to win, basically. And I think when they go, 3-man, if they go 3-man rush, essentially what you're trying to do is bump the crossers off their route, and that's what Belichick does a lot. Somebody asked me in the comments for the Belichick game plan. That's what Bill does a lot. So he essentially plays all coverage versus Mahomes and finds different stunts and ways to rush Mahomes to make it seem like he's pressured, and then always with contact underneath to make those receivers and the timing of those receivers running their routes be a little off, which then rushes Mahomes' thought process, and he has to make a quick decision. That is what Belichick does a lot. So how does Kansas City kind of counteract this? So what I think Kansas City should be doing offensively is they should not be wanting to get under center. They should not be wanting to get into heavy formations, because when you get to heavy formations, that just plays right into Tampa Bay's hand. The best way to attack Tampa Bay is to open them up, spread them out, and play like 4 or 5 wide empty, and just try to attack the best matchups that you have. That is basically the best way of attacking Tampa Bay. I don't see how the Chiefs run the ball in this game. I don't think they'll be able to, and I don't think they'll want to. I think there'll be even some situations in this game where it's like 4th and 2 or 4th and 1, and they pass. Like, I really think that. I don't think Andy Reid on a 4th and 1 is going to run the ball. Honestly. So yeah, what are my other notes here on that side of the football? Oh, another note I have here is I think that the Bucs will really try to stop Tyreek between the 20s, and then they'll focus on Kelce once the Chiefs enter the 20s. And I think the game comes down to, for Tampa, how they do in the red zone. Because ultimately, Kansas City's going to move the ball. But do you keep Kansas City from scoring a touchdown? And I think where their overwhelming edge on the front 7 helps them is in the red zone, because Kansas City won't be able to run the ball. They're going to have to be creative with how they throw the ball and run the ball in the red zone to get those 3 or 4 or 5 yards, especially, the 10-yard line, the 10 and in, right? That is going to be difficult for Kansas City to get those small little chunks of yards. They're going to have to be extremely creative with how they do that. A couple of ways that I also think that Andy Reid is going to attack Tampa is, I think, because the offensive line's underwhelmed, I think they're going to use a lot of rollouts, like designed rollouts, designed boots, like get Mahomes outside the pocket, everybody shifts to the right, and Mahomes moves with him, and then, he throws to get the protection. On certain plays, I believe that's what they'll do, especially early on, I think, to get the chains going and to get the team in rhythm. I do believe that we're going to see a lot of jet sweeps to be a different type of running game. We might see a few screens in this game from Kansas City. That is where the Bucs linebackers and Devin White's speed is going to be absolutely crucial for Tampa, because if they're running a jet sweep to Mecole Hardman, Devin White's one of the few linebackers fast enough to track that down and make a play. Same with Levante David. So those guys are going to have to keep those yards to a minimum on first and second down, and then force Kansas City into a third down where then, therefore, you can expose their weak offensive line. Just like I said about Green Bay. If Tampa's able to win first and second down, they'll win the game. If Kansas City is able to win first and second down, they got a very good chance of winning the game. So that's what I see from that side of the football, the one that everybody's anticipating and ready to watch. The RPO also, last thing, the RPOs in Week 12 were very effective for Kansas City. That's another reason why I think Tampa Bay should play a lot of man, because if you use RPOs, it's a lot easier to defend if you play man than if you play zone. Tampa Bay is just a lot worse in zone, in my opinion. They'll mix it in. I think they'll mix in cover 4 and cover 2 occasionally, and in spots and situations, but I think their primary defense should be man coverage if they want to play it right. So that's my perspective on the game, guys. I think it's going to be an awesome game. As you can see, I think it's very well matched, very well balanced. I think both teams have a great chance of winning if they just execute what they do. I think both teams have a good chance of winning. I think there is one matchup in the game that is overwhelmingly in the favor of one team, and that's Tampa Bay's pass rush versus Kansas City's offensive line. And that is the matchup that I know everyone's talking about it, but everybody's talking about it because it's real. Like, if Tampa Bay wins that overwhelmingly, they probably win the game. If they don't, I think there's a chance they can still win if it's a shootout. But their margin for error becomes a lot larger. Okay? They need plays from their defensive line to win. The turnover battle obviously is going to be huge. Brady's turned the ball over in this past game in Week 12, and he turned the ball over 3 times last week. Mahomes turned the ball over once in Week 12, has been better at protecting it as of late. I think pretty much 90% of people are picking Kansas City, as they should. They're a great team. They are a favorite for a reason. They're back here after just winning it last year. Everything makes sense. When I look at the game, I feel that Tampa Bay has less holes, less weaknesses. I think they have especially less disadvantages. I think the Chiefs have more elite aspects to their team. This game could very well be very similar to last year's Super Bowl, but this time it might actually come down to Tom Brady being in that situation instead of Jimmy Garoppolo. And ultimately, I've believed in Tampa all year. I picked them to win the Super Bowl before the year started. And I think that mismatch up front is why they can win this game, along with Tom Brady and that offense moving the ball better than they did the first time early in the game. As long as they don't get down early, Tampa has a very good chance of pulling off this upset. That's what I believe. If Kansas City is down, of course they can still come back. But it's going to be more difficult than usual because of their bad offensive line. So, I am going to take the Bucs to win because nobody else is in the world. So, I'm going to take Tampa. I got them on my future bet, okay? I've picked them all year, and I'm not stopping now. I don't see enough reasons here why I should pick Kansas City. I truly believe going through this game, that the Bucs have a far greater chance than a lot of people want to say. So, I am taking Tampa Bay to win by the same score that Kansas City beat them in Week 12. 27-24. That's my score. I think the game is going to be slightly lower scoring than people expect. I don't think it's going to be like 38-35. I'd be a little surprised if it was. I think both defenses will have some success in this game. And I see an avenue for both teams to win. I'm going with Tampa. My Super Bowl MVP will be Tom Brady. But there is a chance that one of the defensive linemen wins the MVP. Okay, there is a chance. So that's my opinion on the game. And as I said, this game will come down to home runs and strikeouts ultimately. Let me know your thoughts, who you guys believe will win this game in the comments. I want to hear your guys' thoughts right now. I'll stick around for a few more minutes, like 7 more minutes until 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, and then I'm going to go eat some food. And then I'm going to get ready for the next video that we got underway. My best bets will probably be out tomorrow night. I'll just be going over this in a more condensed version and why I like Tampa to win, but I'm also going to look at, some the over-under, the total. I'm going to look at maybe a couple props, more stuff than I typically do for just a regular week because it is the Super Bowl. So, well, yeah, let's do it, baby. Let me know what you guys think. Joe Mixon says the Chiefs are beating the Bucs 35-0 at half, and then Blaine Gabbert leads a 38-point comeback to beat the Chiefs 38-35. Marco says that he thinks Tom Brady will win 31-24. Tommy says Brady, Gronk, and the receiving core bowls the Bucs defense. Mandrew says Bucs win it, baby. Tommy says go Bucs. Will fans be there? Yes, approximately like 22,000. Casey says Chiefs Kingdom. What's up? Kevin says that Brady will have to pass for 400 plus yards. Casey says Mahomes doesn't lose. Todd Bowles says for all is holy. Please don't play cover one against trips. District 13 says you won't hedge your futures. I'm thinking of hedging my $10 bet. Yes, I might very well hedge my bet and take Kansas City, but that doesn't mean I'm picking Kansas City. Yeah, I probably will. Michael says, as much as I hate to do it, I picked the Bucs 35-31. Rory says, hey, handsome Mitch, what's up, Rory? Connor says, I've got the Bucs. Connor, I want to hear from you. Why do you got the Bucs? Ellie, what's up? Ellie says Brady will win. Never bet against him. Brian says, sorry for your Bucs. Come on, man. It's too big of a hill. And he emphasizes hill for them to climb. I like that. Connor says Brady won't win MVP despite him going to deserve it because everyone hates Brady. The Flicker says, who's commentating the game? Tony Romo and Jim Nance. Joshua says Mahomes will win Super Bowl MVP. It's very hard for the MVP to not go to the quarterback. Buddy Forever says Patrick Mahomes is the best. Can we play cover 2 looks on early downs and avoid RPO torture? Cover 2 man? Yeah, I think you'll still be beat by some of them, but cover 2 man, cover 2 zone, I think is going to be more difficult. Because when you're in zone, right, you can be sucked up by the play action. When you're in man, you're basically focused on your guy. So that's why I say when they run those RPOs, it's better to run it it's better to play man because you're focused on defending your guy, right? Miss 07 says, do you think this can be the same Super Bowl next year? Yes, I do. Dylan says, hi, Mitch. What's up, Dylan? Marco says, Kansas City looking strong, real strong. Marco says, but Brady will squeeze water from a stone once again. Samuel says, is this the best quarterback Super Bowl matchup ever? If not, what is? I believe it is. Rory says, what color will the Gatorade be? Man, that's a good question. I don't know, orange? I have no idea, bro. I have no idea. Michael says, I don't want the Bucs to win. Joe Mixon says, last year I went 11-0 in playoff predictions. This year I went 7-6. Dylan says, I think the MVP will either be Brady, Evans, or JPP for the Bucs, and Mahomes, Hill, or Chris Jones for the Chiefs. Those are good guesses. Casey says, Tyrann Mathieu and Juan Thornhill will take over the second half. All right. Over, under for Fournette drops. I'm going to go with 1.5. Fournette needs to catch a couple passes in this game. Joe Mixon says best Super Bowl quarterback matchup was Foles versus Brady. I believe it is the best Super Bowl matchup. The only ones that I think are comparable are Marino, Montana, Elway, Favre, Breeze, and Manning. Art says Ryan Suckup will kick the game-winning field goal in overtime. Yeah. Greg says Montana versus Elway was also a great matchup. I agree. Connor says I've got the Bucs because Mahomes struggles against athletic fronts. Both the linebackers and David and White are extremely quick on the edge, and are extremely quick, and the edge rushers are just as athletic as Mahomes. Okay, you're saying they can track him down essentially. That makes sense. Should the Bucs spy JPP? What? Should the Bucs spy? Can JPP catch Mahomes? That is something that's going to be really interesting. I think Shaq is faster than Mahomes, and I do think JPP can catch Mahomes. But you never know. That guy's just slick. Sometimes he just gets away, even though he's less athletic than the other guy. But it certainly helps to have that speed. That's why, sometimes I feel like Devin White could be involved there. Jeremy says Chiefs 31-27. Ellie says, I don't know if you saw this stat, but in Russell Wilson's first year starting, he lost a playoff game. Same with Mahomes. The next year, Russell won the Super Bowl, and same with Mahomes. And the third year, Russell lost to Brady in the Super Bowl. Interesting. That's a nice stat. I like that. Michael says, I will 100% cheer for the Chiefs. Fair enough, man. Who's Mahomes playing in the Super Bowl? Brady, says Ellie. Rory says Mahomes looks scared because of TB12 hype. I will say this about Mahomes. He doesn't look scared. He looks tired. Has anyone seen his eyes? In these interviews, he looks like he's been up all night. Durkant says if Tampa takes the game over as much as people are saying on the line of scrimmage, then Tampa could genuinely beat down. I don't see it. I don't see a beat down either way, man. I can't see that. I can't, unless some crazy crap happens, like a pouncy snap over the head into the end zone, like that sort of crap. Brady should tell Arians and Leftwich that I've been to 10 of these. I will call plays now. Thanks. We'll see. Connor says, all right, I'm going to rewatch the first half of the stream. All right, Connor, see you, man. Bulldog says Chiefs are goated. Tommy says Todd Bowles is from Jersey. Elizabeth, New Jersey. There is the answer, in part. Joe Mixon says Brady will either throw for under 150 or over... What? Over 150 or under 400? I mean, that's pretty wide range, right? Dylan says, I'm kind of surprised how much the Bucs changed in a year. Yes. Rory says sleep anxiety. Jeremy says going to be a thriller. I hope so. I hope it's a great game, regardless of who wins. Kevin says, I hope Brady wins number 7 big time, breaking his own Super Bowl passing yards record. That would be wild. Caesar says, I'm cheering for the Bucs because they haven't lost a Super Bowl. And they're at home and the home team. That'd be pretty awesome for a home team to win, not going to lie. I wish there was more fans there, though. Tommy says Mahomes might mentally crash. He's very young. His mind might get the best of him. It happens. I don't know, bro. That's a lot. Mahomes is mentally tough. You can't put it past him. Asia says, what's up? What's up? Bulldog says, Chiefs are goated, just like you. Hey, thanks. Rory says, I'm from the Jersey Shore. Animal says, it will be a close one. All right, final predictions, guys. I'm going to head out. Thank you guys for joining. If you missed, just rewind, check out the stream if you want the in-depth preview. But yeah, I'm excited, man. This Super Bowl is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I cannot wait. I won't be streaming the game during the game, but I am planning on doing a recap for the game. So an immediate reaction, regardless of who wins or loses. I'm going to do a recap of the game, and you guys can join me for that live. Because during the game, I want to have fun. I want to eat, drink, watch it, and just relax. So I won't be streaming it just because I've done it in the past, and Super Bowl is not really a great streaming event because so many people are like, they're doing their own thing. So I'll do a recap after the game, and I'll talk about it in depth after the game and what I saw, my reaction, and all that sort of stuff. All right, thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed. Hopefully you got some good information here, and enjoy Super Bowl 55. Peace.